Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA. Ocala.
All right, 25 minutes before 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in this morning. I want to start with the word unsung, or the two words, unsung heroes. And I think I understand why some heroes are unsung. I think it's because most of the heroes that I've met have been so humble, you would never, ever know that they were heroes or that they did anything heroic. And it usually takes somebody else to point it out. The point is illustrated every Thursday when in this very studio we have a show called Veterans News, and the people who participate in that show are all veterans from one war or another. And last week we lost one of those veterans. He died in a motorcycle accident, Don Harrison, who used to come in here, and he just died not even a week ago, I don't think.
Yeah, it was not his fault either.
Not his fault.
No.
But the point is that we knew that he had been seriously injured in Vietnam. We knew that. We knew he had the most positive outlook of anybody.
Yeah.
But the only reason we knew he had been injured is because they would always joke about him being held together with thread and sewed back together. And they would always joke about how he was blown apart and put back together. And if you looked at him, some doctor somewhere did his job well, because you really couldn't tell. He had a glass eye. I think his whole face had to be one side of his face had to be reconstructed. I don't think he had any real teeth. And who knows if his hearing was perfect, because he got hit in the face, from what I understand. And last week, of course, we lost him in that tragic accident. He was 65, by the way, years old. But what I'm telling you is true for every one of them. Sergeant Curley comes in here. Sergeant Curley was shot in Vietnam.
Yeah.
I think more than once. And you know what? Even those who aren't hit by a bullet or shrapnel or an EA, what do you call
IED.
it? IED, thank you. I almost said the birth control thing.
It's easy to make that mistake.
I got so many things I got to remember.
Yeah.
I'll use that as an excuse. But anyway, even those who made it unscathed, they are heroes. I understand when they say, "Don't call me a hero," because what the vets will always say, it's the ones under the white crosses that are the heroes. Yes, they are heroes also, but so are you. If you served at all, you are. I mean, you decided at one point, you made that decision to go and put your life on the line for something you believed in and something your country was asking you to do. That's why I love the book we're going to talk about. It is called Valor, and it is written by our guest, Mark Lee Greenblatt. He is an attorney. He's on the U.S. Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations, and he led the U.S. Senate investigations into the United Nations Oil for Food program. He's a contributor to CBS, MSNBC, Fox News, Wall Street Journal. He even earned a black belt in Taekwondo, it says here.
Yep.
And he's a drummer.
He's a drummer.
He's
That
a drummer
is cool.
in a band called Fiasco. One of the greatest rock and roll bands since the Beatles. Everybody says that. He's written an awesome book. It's called Valor, and part of the book is based on Chris Kyle, and I want him to tell you about that. I know from his publicist about that part. And everybody knows Chris Kyle is the sniper featured in the movie and the book American Sniper. Mark Lee Greenblatt. Good morning, Mark.
Thank you so much for having me on. That's quite an intro. Yes, the comparison with the Beatles was completely ironic because we were terrible.
No, I can't believe you were terrible. I wasn't implying that. I was just saying. Everybody says that. What was that guy who used to have that late night commercial? Sold more records than the Beatles.
Oh, Frankie Valli.
Everybody's done that.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name. He recently died too.
Oh,
the guy, the guy with the skinny mustache. He lived here in Florida.
Oh, yeah.
See, I always do this. I go on a big tangent.
Tony Orlando?
No. Mark, good morning.
Mark will know.
Speaking of Tony Orlando, by the way, I saw him perform. He is a huge supporter of veterans.
He certainly is. Yes, you're absolutely right. He is.
And I actually saw him perform at a veterans charity in Texas, and he was quite compelling.
That's awesome. Yeah, I watched a very impressive video with Tony Orlando. We had Tony Orlando on the show once.
Yeah, we did.
As a phone-in, so like you, Mark, you're a phone-in. Tell us, your publicist told me that some of the information in the book is from Chris Kyle, so we'll start with him. And she told me that what is that? She told me that the information that he gave you was not information that he shared in his own book, out of respect for you.
That's right. So I started writing my book in 2008 when Chris was still in the Navy SEAL team, and he had not written his book or anything along those lines. And so he knew that I was profiling heroes, and he agreed to participate in the project. And so I wrote up his whole story over the next year or so, and then later when he left the Navy and decided to write his own book, he expressly did not include these stories that I've included in Valor out of respect for my project, which I think speaks volumes about Chris, frankly, about his character. He could have very easily, included that in his own memoir, and he elected to be a stand-up guy. That's one of those things that how you act when no one's looking is, it really judges your character, and I think that is a good, accurate reflection of how he was.
Yeah, and I mean, what a tragedy that he was shot and killed at a shooting range of all places.
I actually can't wrap my mind around it, because it's not only just that he was at a shooting range, but he was helping a Marine trying to overcome post-traumatic stress. I mean, Chris would go on these things and do these things, volunteer his time to help other vets out, and occasionally they would go and shoot at the range. I mean, that's something that they do to relax. So he thought it would be a good idea, and this Marine just lost it and thought Chris was going to get him, and so he just snapped and killed Chris. And his friend Chad, is just an awful story. I mean, you almost can't wrap your mind around it.
Yeah, it's a horrible story, horrible. And as the movie begins to make Chris Kyle's name, I mean, it hasn't begun; it's already done it. I mean, everybody knows his name. But that's the exception, knowing the name of the hero, and we wouldn't know it if it wasn't for the book, and we wouldn't know it if it wasn't for your book. But the veterans that we know, and this probably is true for everybody. Everybody knows a veteran, or you are a veteran, and everybody knows some amazing stories that don't always get told. So I'm glad you did this, because this is like a test, I guess, to show that hey, if you're a veteran, you are a hero.
I think that's exactly right. One of the things that I was frustrated by is I was hearing these stories back in the 06, 07 time frame that were just incredible. And I remember thinking to myself, no one knows these men and women. When they go home, they're going to be bagging groceries if they're lucky enough to find a job in the first place. And so I said, someone's got to tell these stories. And then finally I had one of those, palm to the forehead moments where I said, well, why don't I do it? And that was the start of Valor. And Chris Kyle was actually the first story that I got, the first story that I pursued. But then the other 8 that I got over the ensuing 5 years are similar in stature, in the sense of this remarkable moment where they go into harm's way in order to save a life or accomplish a mission. They're really inspiring stories, and I wanted to give folks a granular understanding of what these men and women are doing over there. Yeah,
so there are 9 stories, 9 heroes in the book, right?
Right.
Are the other 8 still alive?
6 of the so in total 7 of the 9 are still with us.
Okay.
All 9 survived the combat incidents that I talk about. Chris obviously was murdered, as we were just discussing, and then another one of the guys, a Marine infantry grunt, a guy named James Hassel, who was a wonderful, wonderful guy, literally saved one of his Marine buddies in an awful firefight in Najaf, Iraq. And came home, got out of the Marine Corps, was married with a daughter, happily, living his life. He'd gotten a degree and was doing well, and he just collapsed and had a heart attack. It's just a tragic story, but and that really broke my heart.
Wow. I want to
The
hear.
other 7 are
I know our audience wants to hear some of the stories in the book. If you would share them with us, we need to take a little break though, and then we'll be right back. And I promise, no more silly talk, Beatles, etc. Beatles. All right, we'll take a little break, and we will be right back. I love this stuff. We'll be right back.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accident. It'll be sunny today, but chilly with a high of 59 to 63. Clear and cold tonight with lows in the mid to upper 30s inland, 48 on the coast. Tomorrow, beautiful day with sunshine and a milder afternoon, high 65 to 69. And on Friday, partly sunny to high 66 to 70. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg.
What are the most common questions those nearing retirement are asking? Will I outlive my money? Retirement questions like these and many more will be answered every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. on Planning for a Better and Safer Retirement with hosts Francois and Julian Pozenet. Francois and Julian will help you put your retirement puzzle together. Catch Planning for a Better and Safer Retirement Saturdays at 9 a.m. on Ocala's News Talk, The Source 96.3 FM and 1370 AM.
Here's what you may have missed on the John Tesh Radio Show.
Tea is now the second most consumed beverage in the world, and green tea in particular can do everything from help us lose weight, to protect our memory, to lower our risk for heart disease, even cancer. It's nearly impossible to gain even 1 pound of permanent weight in a single day. You're all high-fiving yourselves now, right? So how can you be more focused and in the moment? Wiggling your toes, and then taking a moment to focus all your attention on how that feels.
Intelligence for your life on the John Tesh Radio Show. Don't miss this stuff.
How do you go from getting advice to wiggle your toes back to talking about heroes that
Right.
risk their lives? It's entertainment. We had on the phone Jim DeFelice, also one of the other two authors that helped out Chris Kyle with the American Sniper memoir. On the phone, Mark Lee Greenblatt is on the phone. I didn't ask Mark where he is, I don't think. His book is called Valor, Unsung Heroes from Iraq, Afghanistan, and the Home Front. Mark, good morning again. Where are you?
I'm in Washington, D.C., actually.
Oh, okay. What was it about the website? We can actually write to the 7 heroes, as well as the families of the 2 that are gone?
That's right. So I set up a feature on my website where readers can go on and hit email a hero, and they can write directly to the heroes that are profiled in my book. And for Chris Kyle, I'll send those emails to his family. I just sent a few of them, earlier today, actually, and earlier this week. Obviously, with the release of American Sniper, a number of folks have written in. And many times they just want to share their thoughts on what the story in Valor or the movie, how that resonated with them. And I got to tell you, the families love hearing, and the heroes love hearing from readers, and they frequently write back. So that's a nice little feature.
That is nice. How difficult was it for them to share the stories with you, and how reluctant were they with the word hero?
Oh, they all rejected the label hero right out of the gate. I mean, that was just verboten for all of them. And that was actually quite compelling to me. It's just how resistant they were to that word. It was very impressive to me. I mean, especially because I live in the Washington, D.C. area, where claiming credit for, things you haven't done, that's our local currency.
That's funny.
That's how we communicate here in Washington. And so to be around these guys who rejected that, who deflected credit to others, that was pretty inspiring. And that's something that I hope gets through to the readers. These guys all reject the label. They don't think they did anything incredible. I think the facts are pretty clear when you read these 9 stories. These guys did incredible things.
It's something about in the DNA, I say with quote marks around that. But a lot of these guys, after their military service, are become like firefighters and police officers, and they have that same attitude. And when you speak to firefighters and police officers about what they do for a living, they also reject the hero label. And then you find out that they also are veterans.
That's right. I think there's a common theme in not only their training and just their sort of their corporate culture, if you will, that claiming credit is just runs against the grain. It's not how we do business. You could see that a bit with the Navy SEAL who came out about the Osama bin Laden raid, about some of the pushback from the SEAL community that they don't love. That
good point. Yeah, that is a good point.
I was we were all very surprised when the American Sniper movie was met with resistance and not so nice comments.
Well, that was just infuriating to me, especially when folks who never interacted with Chris were saying things like he was a racist and a mass murderer, and it's just so contrary to what he was doing. I mean, it was not that he was just walking around the street and shooting random Iraqis. It was not that at all. What he was doing was, he hated the terrorists. At the time that they were, beheading people in Iraq. They're doing that now again, but back then, those are the people he was getting after. Those are the people he was targeting, and those are the people that he would kill ruthlessly. And frankly, I have no problem with that.
Me too. Me too. We were talking about this when Michael Moore made that dopey tweet thing. What he did, I guess you're familiar with that, where he said his uncle was killed in World War II by a sniper, and somehow he was taught that snipers are cowards, and therefore this is a movie about a coward. I'm paraphrasing whatever he said. But Robert and I were talking about it, and we said, how would he change his mind if he was one of those journalists getting ready to be beheaded by ISIS, but instead of getting beheaded, some sniper picks off the ISIS guy and then saves the day? I mean, wouldn't that be an awesome scene right there? And how is that guy a coward,
Yeah, well, how about this? I mean, here's a real-life situation. How about the guys who saved the hostages from the pirates in off the coast of Somalia, I believe it was, right? Those Navy SEALs, those were snipers. Are those guys cowards? I mean, these guys are in the thick of it. These guys are coming home with Purple Hearts. These guys are coming home with battle scars, literal battle scars.
Yeah.
And how is that a kind, someone like who's actually going through the thick of it, a coward? That just boggles the mind.
Wow. Well, good for you for doing this book. I mean, these are the stories that need to be told, and they're not really going to tell them themselves unless it's coerced out of them by somebody who, with your skills. I'm guessing the attorney in you was good training ground, I guess, so to speak, in being able to get information from somebody who's reluctant to give it.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, not only am I an attorney, but I do investigation, and so I, do interviews with people where folks are not terribly forthcoming usually, and folks don't want to engage and tell me what they're thinking or what happened. And so I just applied those skills, to the book when I was, interviewing these heroes. Now, the heroes I'm interviewing for positive reasons, unlike my other interviews, which are for negative reasons. Where I'm uncovering misconduct. In this case, I was, the juxtaposition was nice because I'm looking at positive conduct. And so, but it was the same type of skill set of kind of keep drilling down, of keep going, asking the question a different way, and you'll get a new nugget of information. And so the guys are great in their willingness to participate.
The subtitle of the book Valor is Unsung Heroes from Iraq, Afghanistan, and the Home Front. And if you don't mind giving us a sneak peek at what's in the book, can you give us a story of a heroic story that's from the Home Front?
Absolutely. There's a Navy rescue swimmer named Kyle. He's actually from Florida, and he's in Florida now. And he saved this civilian in this unbelievable rescue. This storm that they were in, it was like something out of the movie, The Perfect Storm. The swells in the water were 50 feet high. I mean, that's 5 stories of a building.
Wow.
Yeah. And Kyle is this rescue swimmer. They went out, he and his 4-man team went out in a helicopter through this storm. All 4 of the guys are heroes, by the way. The commander who was piloting, the lieutenant commander who was navigating, and then the crew chief who was working with Kyle to save the civilian. I mean, they all, were heroes. But Kyle actually jumped into the water, into this swirling, storm. It was, I can't convey just how unbelievable it was. I mean, he said it was not just the worst storm he had ever done a mission in. It was the worst storm he had ever been in. And so it was a pretty compelling story. But he was saving a civilian off the coast of the Atlantic.
Wow.
So that's where the home front comes in.
Wow, that is a cool story. How long has the book been out?
The book came out in May, and I've been just thrilled with the reception so far. Folks have really come out and supported the heroes, which is just great. That's the whole purpose of the book.
Well, I think everybody who is in a position like Robin and I are, in the event that Michael Moore is ever a guest on our show, I want to get your book so I have all of this information as ammunition. Because I want to throw it back at him. I mean, somebody's got to do this, and hopefully, somebody will say, "What do you mean they're cowards? What about this guy? What about that guy?"
And speaking about Chris Kyle in particular, the thing that's great about the stories in Valor about Chris is that it's not about him as a sniper. It is about him saving lives, where he was actually on the ground. He went in and liberated some trapped Marines. This is in Fallujah, during the Second Battle of Fallujah. The Marines were trapped, and they were taking insurgent fire directly across this little alley. And Chris ran down the alley alone, liberated these Marines, and dragged an injured Marine to safety while the insurgents were chasing him up the alley. So you tell me, Michael Moore, is that cowardice?
Yeah, really.
How do you talk to children about this? Because children hear adults talking, they see things on television, and they want to know. How do you tell them about all aspects of war?
Well, what I do is I try to focus on what these individuals did and why, and so I get away from sort of the gory details and mostly talk about the brotherhood, the teamwork, that they were so committed to each other, and the commitment to the success of the mission that they were willing to put themselves in danger. And I think that resonates. And so that, in my view, is the big lesson for the kids. I think as they get older, they can maybe, they can handle the more graphic, combat lines. But in terms of the themes that I try to pitch to kids, and I've spoken in front of kids before, is just that they are so committed to helping each other. They love each other, and because of that love, they're willing to do things that are just truly exceptional. And so what I say is, find that thing that you love, that thing that you're so committed to that you're willing to do anything, and that's the foundation for greatness.
My notes indicate that there was a story about a ranger and his son. Can you tell us that story?
Yeah, well, this is Chris Choe. He was a ranger, and he was in a rural Afghan valley. And they were in this long, nasty firefight where the insurgents had a bunker way down deep in the valley, and the Americans were taking casualties up at the top of the valley. And Chris's squad was ordered to go down in and take out this bunker. And Chris led the men down there. They took a couple of casualties along the way. And Chris got up right next to them and looked at them and saw that the bunker was vulnerable on its left side. They had 3 machine guns and an RPG, but they were vulnerable on their left side. The problem was that Chris was on their right side. So Chris led a flanking maneuver where he went through machine gun crossfire to get to their vulnerable flank. And then he's standing there, he's preparing to lead the assault, and he realizes he's all alone, that his men hadn't heard him as he led the flanking maneuver. So here he is, right up on the precipice of this insurgent bunker. He looks down the scope of his rifle. He says they're so close. They look so close that they look like they're sitting across a dinner table from him.
Wow.
And he prepares to take them out. He stands up, draws in a breath, and the rifle jams.
Oh.
Think about that moment. Think about that. He's standing there so close. They have 3 machine guns and an RPG, and he is right next to them. And the rifle jams. If they just look to their left, Chris is dead. Now, I don't know about you, but I probably would have soiled my pants.
Yeah, wow. We're going to have to read the book to know the rest because we're up against the clock.
Okay.
Mark Lee Greenblatt, what a great interview. The book is called Valor. How do we get the book? Is it online? I guess it's everywhere, huh?
Everywhere. Obviously on Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com, independent bookstores all around the country. But it's gotten great reception. Available everywhere.
All right, and the website, markleegreenblatt.com?
That's right, and that's where folks can go on and email the heroes directly.
Oh, okay, excellent. Mark, what an honor to have you on our show. Thank you for being on our show, and keep doing what you're doing. I love this, and thank you on behalf of all of us radio geeks who will have some information in case Michael Moore comes on. Thank you, Mark.
Lillian Wu, ISIS could be getting what it wants in exchange for a hostage. Amman saying it's willing to free Sajid al-Rashawi to get their pilot back, but not mentioning Japanese hostage Kenji Goto.
And an audio message apparently from Goto saying that he and the pilot would be released for al-Rashawi. Now, Japanese foreign ministers have been in Jordan for more than a week now, reportedly holding indirect talks.